Meghan Markle did it again. This time, not in London, not in Montecito, but right in the middle of New York City, on live television during Good Morning America, no less, a stage watched by millions every single morning. She walked in carrying herself like royalty, but what she brought wasn't grace. It was tension. From the very second she sat in that chair across from Lara Spencer, the energy shifted. No smile, no warmth, no willingness to play along. Meghan wasn't there to blend into the rhythm of the show. She wanted to bend it to her will. And that's exactly where everything began to unravel. Lara Spencer, polished, professional, sharp, wasn't going to let anyone hijack her show. Not even Meghan Markle. The segment was built as a routine guest appearance. Just another celebrity talking about their latest project. But the atmosphere told a different story. It wasn't promotion. It wasn't conversation. It was confrontation. By the time the cameras cut away, Meghan wasn't smiling. She wasn't waving. She wasn't even talking about her cause. She was gone, escorted out of the studio, expelled after one of the most entitled outbursts viewers had ever seen on morning television. But how did it collapse so quickly? How did a simple sit-down turn into a showdown? Let's start from the very beginning. The doors opened. Meghan stepped onto the GMA stage. The studio lights were bright. The cameras were live. The hosts were smiling. But Meghan's face told another story. Her jaw was tight. Her arms crossed briefly before she settled into the chair. The corners of her mouth curved upward, but it wasn't a genuine smile. It was thin, practiced, more like a smirk than a welcome. Lara Spencer greeted her with the kind of warmth that only years of experience can bring. "Meghan, thank you for being here this morning," she said, her voice calm, steady, professional. Meghan barely nodded. A clipped acknowledgement. Quick and almost dismissive. She adjusted her seat, shifted her shoulders, and looked down at the table as if she had better places to be. Already, the mood felt strained. Most guests arrived eager to charm. But Meghan arrived looking like she was bracing for a fight. The cameras caught it all. Her posture, her frown, her refusal to engage warmly. It was visible, and it set the tone instantly. Lara pressed forward with her introduction, as polished as ever, setting the stage for what should have been a smooth conversation. "We're so excited to have Meghan Markle here to talk about her new project." But Meghan's reaction told a different story. Her eyes narrowed. She inhaled sharply through her nose. Her lips tightened. She tilted her head slightly, as if she had already decided the framing was wrong. That was when the first crack appeared. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She didn't even let Lara finish. Instead, Meghan leaned forward, resting her hands on the desk with an air of impatience. The look wasn't gratitude or enthusiasm. It was irritation. Her silence was louder than any words. It was the kind of body language that couldn't be ignored. Lara carried on, but the tension between them hung like a wire pulled taut. You could see Lara notice it, a small flicker in her expression, a slight pause in her cadence. But she pressed forward, professional to the core. Still, the stage was set. Meghan wasn't here to play along. She wasn't here to charm. She wasn't even here to cooperate. She was here to command. The camera panned across the table, catching Meghan tapping her fingers on the surface, her eyes darting, her jaw still locked. If you looked closely, you could almost see her rehearsing the rebuttals she was preparing to unleash. This wasn't the arrival of a guest. It was the arrival of a storm. And Lara Spencer, without saying a word, seemed to know it. She shuffled her cards, smiled into the camera, and then turned back to Meghan. Her voice carried that steady, inviting tone that viewers know so well, the kind that makes even the most nervous guest feel ease. "Meghan, let's start with your latest project," Lara began. "You've been working hard on." But before she could finish, Meghan leaned forward, pressing her hands firmly onto the desk, her eyes locked on Lara. "I'm not here for fluff," Meghan said. Her tone was sharp, clipped, almost cold. The words sliced through Lara's sentence like a knife. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't playful. It was calculated. An interruption that was deliberate, dismissive, designed to make a point. The studio fell silent for a beat. Lara blinked, caught off guard, but quickly steadied herself. Years of live television had prepared her for difficult moments, but this was different. Guests didn't usually interrupt, certainly not like this, not with a tone that sharp. Still, Lara gave a measured smile and responded gracefully. "Of course, Meghan. Why don't you tell us what's most important to you right now?" It was the kind of handoff a seasoned broadcaster uses to regain balance, to shift control back to the guest without letting the tension derail the segment. But Meghan didn't soften. She leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and stared ahead as if daring Lara to challenge her again. Then came her words, calm but edged with defiance. "What matters is that people stop trying to box me into shallow conversations. I didn't come here to be packaged into sound bites." The audience, usually so lively during morning shows, grew quieter. You could feel it even through the cameras. This wasn't the cheerful, easy banter viewers expected at breakfast. It was uncomfortable, almost confrontational. Lara nodded, keeping her tone neutral. "That's fair," she said. "We're here to listen. So tell us, what message do you want to share?" But Meghan wasn't easing in. She wasn't warming up. Instead, she let out a faint laugh, not one of joy, but one laced with disbelief, as though the very idea of having to explain herself was beneath her. "If you're really listening," Meghan replied, her voice carrying a firm weight, "then stop framing my work as just another celebrity project. I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to be heard." The words landed heavily. Lara held her composure, but you could see the strain in her eyes. This wasn't discussion. It was turning into a standoff. The tension grew thicker by the second. Lara Spencer, calm and unshaken, leaned forward slightly, her posture signaling openness rather than resistance. She was giving Meghan every opportunity to steer the conversation towards something meaningful. "All right," Lara said smoothly, "let's focus on the heart of your work. Tell us what drives you." It was a professional pivot, an invitation to reset. But Meghan didn't take it as such. Instead, she sighed audibly, glanced at the audience, and then back at Lara. Her tone was cool, almost dismissive. "What drives me? The fact that people keep underestimating me. The media twists everything I do. And frankly, interviews like this one don't help." Gasps rippled faintly through the studio. The audience shifted in their seats. Viewers at home could sense it. This wasn't just assertiveness. It was an attack on the very platform she was sitting on. Lara didn't flinch. She offered a measured nod, acknowledging the criticism without feeding into the hostility. "It sounds like you face a lot of challenges with perception," she said gently. "How do you hope to change that narrative?" For a moment, silence. Meghan's expression hardened. Her fingers tapped against the desk once more, her gaze steady, unyielding. Then she delivered her response with a kind of icy precision, by refusing to play along. "I'm not going to smile and nod while being reduced to tabloid headlines. I expect better. From everyone, including this show." That line struck like lightning. Lara drew in a slow breath, her professionalism unwavering, but the message was clear. Meghan wasn't just resisting small talk. She was calling out Good Morning America itself, live on air. The room felt electric. Every word Meghan spoke was heavy, confrontational, impossible to ignore. And for the first time, the balance of the show felt shaken. Not because of what Lara said, but because of how Meghan chose to challenge it. By now, the atmosphere in the studio was no longer tense. It was strained, almost unbearable. Morning television thrived on lighthearted energy, but this felt like a live showdown. Lara, still composed, tried once more to ease the mood. "Meghan, I think our viewers would love to hear about the impact your work is having. Can you share a moment that stands out to you?" It was a gentle question, a chance for Meghan to pivot towards something uplifting, something that could win over the audience. But Meghan didn't take it. She leaned back, crossed her legs, and looked at Lara with the faintest smirk. "Impact doesn't come from telling feel-good stories," she said flatly. "It comes from challenging the systems that hold people back. That's what I'm doing. And if people can't handle that truth, that's their problem, not mine." The air grew colder. The studio audience, unsure whether to clap or stay silent, chose the latter. Their discomfort was palpable. This wasn't the Meghan they had expected to see. Lara shifted slightly in her seat, maintaining eye contact, her professionalism unshaken. "It sounds like you're passionate about change," she said carefully. "Do you feel platforms like this can help amplify that?" Meghan's eyes narrowed. They could, if they cared more about the message than the spectacle. It was a direct jab, one that left little room for interpretation. Lara's lips pressed together for a brief second before curving back into a practiced television smile. The cameras stayed trained on both women, capturing every flicker of tension, every unspoken thought. And then, almost as if testing how far she could push, Meghan added, "But let's be honest, Lara, this show has never been about real conversations. It's about keeping people entertained." A ripple ran through the audience. That was the moment the interview stopped being a dialogue and became something else entirely, a public confrontation between guest and host. The studio air had turned heavy, and every second felt charged with unease. Lara Spencer, steady and composed, leaned into her training, refusing to let the moment spiral. "Morning television is about connection, Meghan," she said, her tone even but firm. "Millions of people invite us into their homes every day. That's not entertainment. It's trust, and we take that seriously." It was a calm defense, but Meghan wasn't swayed. She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Trust?" she repeated, almost scoffing. "Trust doesn't come from polished segments and smiling faces. Trust comes from honesty, and that's exactly what I'm giving you right now, whether you like it or not." Her words sliced through the air. The audience sat frozen, unsure if they were watching a serious interview or a confrontation unfolding in real time. Even the camera operators seemed hesitant, unsure where to focus, on Lara's steady poise or Meghan's defiance. Lara didn't miss a beat. She straightened her papers, glanced briefly at the camera, then back at Meghan. "We do appreciate honesty," she said smoothly, "but I think our viewers also appreciate respect." That single word, respect, hung in the air like a challenge. Meghan's lips tightened. She uncrossed her legs, leaned forward, and placed her hands firmly on the desk once again. "Respect is earned," she replied coldly, "and I've learned that very few people in the media deserve it." A collective murmur rippled through the audience. Viewers at home could sense it too. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a battle of wills, live on national television. And for the first time, Lara's practiced smile faltered ever so slightly. Not because she was losing her composure, but because Meghan had pushed the moment beyond the boundaries of a typical interview. The stage, once built for morning chatter, now felt like an arena. By now, the interview had gone far past recovery. What was supposed to be a light, engaging segment had transformed into something producers hadn't planned for and could no longer control. Behind the cameras, crew members exchanged uneasy glances. The control room scrambled, debating whether to cut to commercial early, but the director hesitated. This was raw television, uncomfortable, yes, but impossible to look away from. Lara Spencer, still composed, attempted one last pivot. Her voice carried that trademark warmth, steady but edged with resolve. "Meghan, I think everyone watching admires your passion. But this show has always been about uplifting voices, not tearing people down. Don't you think there's value in that?" It was an olive branch, an invitation to recalibrate. But Meghan didn't take it. Instead, she let out a faint, humorless laugh. "Uplifting voices?" she repeated, shaking her head. "What you really mean is safe voices, polite voices, voices that don't challenge the status quo. And that's not me." The word struck like a hammer. The audience stirred again, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats, others whispering to one another. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was conflict, laid bare in real time. Lara inhaled slowly, choosing her next words carefully. But before she could speak, Meghan continued, her tone sharp, unyielding. "If you really wanted to uplift voices, you wouldn't try to box me in with stage questions. You'd let me say what I came here to say." Her voice echoed across the studio, heavy with defiance. The camera zoomed in on Lara, whose jaw tightened ever so slightly as she processed the attack. She didn't retaliate, but the silence spoke volumes. And in that silence, it became clear. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. It was a complete breakdown, one that millions were watching unfold live. The breaking point came swiftly. Meghan leaned forward once more, her voice rising sharper than before. "I will not be silenced. Not here. Not anywhere. If you brought me on just to reduce me to sound bites, then you've wasted my time." The audience gasped. Some clapped nervously, unsure if they were supporting her or just reacting to the sheer audacity of the moment. Lara Spencer, however, remained calm, her professionalism unshaken even under fire. "Meghan," Lara said firmly, "we invited you here to share your story. But what our viewers didn't expect was hostility. This is a space for dialogue, not confrontation." The studio fell silent. Meghan's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line. For a moment, it seemed like she might respond with even more force, but before she could, the producers made their decision. The director's voice cut through the control room. "We're done. Go to break." The cameras shifted, the lights dimmed, and in a matter of seconds, the segment ended. Meghan was escorted off the set, her exit as abrupt as her outburst. No smiles, no handshakes, no goodbyes, just silence, heavy and undeniable. By the time the show returned from commercial, Lara was back on screen, smiling with practiced ease, moving seamlessly into the next segment as though nothing had happened. But the tension lingered. Viewers at home had witnessed something extraordinary, something unscripted, something raw. Meghan Markle had not just walked off Good Morning America. She'd been removed, her outburst too sharp, too entitled, too impossible to contain. And in that single morning, a simple guest appearance became one of the most talked about live television moments of the year.